When many users are crafting the navigation of their site, the first hint they reach for is button hint. Button is very easy to understand. You can use graphics, you can have that little hover state, that sort of stuff. So, buttons are easy to understand, and a lot of, for many users, it's the only navigation metaphor that they ever learn with SiteGrinder. But buttons have several limitations, and SiteGrinder has many more choices than just the button hint. And so that's what this video is about. We've got a little spreadsheet here. I'm going to fly through a couple of the topics real quick and talk about how these things are different. Just to go over them real quick, button is the one that is usually the first hint that people ever learn in SiteGrinder. So we don't have to cover that. Menus are applied to text menus, making a text layer into each item becomes a menu. Similar, a menu tree joins these things together and is very, very editable in the Content Manager. Text is just plain text on the page. However, since you can put hyperlinks in text, it can be used as a navigation, meme. Then there's some gallery ones, thumb sheets, panel sheets, that are used for navigating galleries. That's really their intended purpose, but they can be occasionally pressed into service to be used for like page navigation, things like that. So the first thing we want to talk about is hyperlinks for all these things. Now, all of them can link to a URL, so just the bare minimum, and really the traditional way of linking with most other web tools, they can all link to a URL. The main SiteGrinder ones that are meant for navigation, menu tree, menu button, and text, they can also do page hyperlinks, meaning they can just, rather than you constructing a link from a file name and a path and this sort of thing, you can just simply choose one of the pages from a list and SiteGrinder will link it up appropriately. So those are very, very powerful, especially once you start getting into hierarchical sites and folders and things like that, so you don't have to construct all those paths. And by advanced hyperlinks, what we mean in this column here is the ability to do file upload, like link to a PDF file and provide that file, and SiteGrinder will bring the file into the site and link it up for you. Have links that open in a new window, email links, URL links, literal links, these sorts of different options. Only menu tree, menu, and button support these. Text doesn't have support for them, and neither do the gallery elements. So if you're thinking about navigation metaphors, definitely be considering the linking options on what sort of links you expect the client to be setting, and that could determine what sort of thing you might be using. Another thing to think about is how editable it is in the Content Manager. And this is one of the reasons to not use buttons. The only thing in the Content Manager that you can change for a button is its link. You can't change its text, you can't change its graphic, just its link. Whereas menus, you can change the text, the order of the menu items, you can add and delete them, you can set the links on all the menu items, and a menu tree, you can completely change the organization, you can add new branches, all sorts of stuff. Text, as we know, is very malleable. And then panel sheets and thumb sheets are also fairly editable in the Content Manager. You can add new images, delete them, reorder them, set new links on them, things like that. One other thing to keep track of is the tracking of the current page. And not all, move this a little more over here. The tracking of the current page is as you navigate through your menus or things like that, one of the menu items keeps its hover state or its click state to indicate to the user what page they're presently on. The menu tree and the menu support this. None of the other things do. I guess technically with buttons you can remove the button from the page and place something else on the page in its stead, but that's very sort of time consuming and awkward. Another thing to think about with these things is the search engine optimization. Menu trees and menus have very, very strong SEO because they use the unuttered list meme for their HTML representation. Very, very good. Buttons have good SEO if they're a text button, but if they're a graphic button, then it's only okay. Text, of course, is text. And the thumb sheets and panel sheets are JavaScript driven, and so they do not have good SEO representations. Hover and click states, how much can you customize this when the mouse is over it, when the mouse clicks on it. A button, obviously, we know by using graphic buttons, you have full control over that. But if with text buttons, you have to do the styling in the Design Manager. But that's also what Menu Tree and Menu provides, are styling in the Design Manager. One thing to remember with text is that for text links, you can set the styling of the Design Manager, but the text link setting is global for that page, that all the text layers share the same text link setting. So And moving on just through this stuff is getting a little bit more remote, less important. Can something trigger a hover show or click show? Buttons can, menu items can. A lot of people forget that, but a menu item can also match to a hover show and click show and trigger it if the menu item is in the Photoshop file, not if it's added later in the Content Manager. Um, and then how much control you have over the position. Obviously, buttons, you have a lot of control. Menus, a fair amount of control. You usually have pretty good control unless it's a horizontal menu, in which case the menu items may not be exactly where you expect them to be. Text wraps, things like that. Menu tree, you don't have a lot of control over the position of the submenus, for example. And then can this thing can be combined with hover show, click show to be animated? The menu is the clear winner there. You can easily put a menu hover show and have an animated menu, but the buttons, very awkwardly have to be nested in a panel, things like that. And then text can also be combined with the hover show. So a lot of different things to consider. A lot, probably a lot of hints to keep in your head, things like that. But just this chart is available so that as you're trying to think of alternate ways of making navigation for your users, that you can look and see whether or not everything that you're going to want to do or they might want to do are going to be available, and if not, then maybe plan around them, things like that. Hope this was helpful.